inside the library, inside of Guiding the Business, there's a process here. If I go Add from Library General, that's called New Employee Training. So you can select this process and add it to your system just by hitting Save. This is how the library processes work. You just select them from the library and hit Save. So this process allows you to edit it for each individual employee. I'm going to drag it over here so you can see. So I've edited the titles. I called this one salesperson, this one marketing assistant, this one senior tech. All I did was go to the library process, and I just edit the title of it and you can title these any way that you want. But the minute I change the title for admin, now I can go back to the library and pull it down for another employee. So this is a template, and the minute I edit the title, I can then go back to the library here and pull it down again. So the way that we've done this, you can pull it down numerous times and get the same template. And all you have to do is edit the title. It changes it so TouchStone doesn't think you already have it, and then you can go back and download it again. So what this template is it allows you to create a step-by-step training checklist for each position. You can go to the job description and export it to Word, and in a way, that is a training checklist. You have to train every process on that job description. This is just kind of a little bit more detailed way of going about it. So if you're thinking to yourself, what's the difference between this and the job description? Well, there's really no difference other than you've got this kind of field here where you can plan out the training a little bit. So basically, the step-by-step is you're going to take the job description processes and you're going to put them into the checklist. You can export it to Word and just cut and paste them. You only have to do this once for every position on your org chart. Not every person, just every position. So this is going to work for all the salespeople. So here I've got Department and Company Innovation. So this is a process that's on their job description. If I want to see the details of this process, I've hyperlinked it to the process itself. So here's a work plan on how to do Department and Company Innovation, how to give feedback, how to do guidelines, how to put that little look at this in the Save As folder. So this is a new sales employee, and I'm going to train him on each process one at a time. I've decided what the total training time is going to be, 2 hours for this process. Background and relevance, why is this important to the company culture? Why is the Department and Company Innovation process essential? A lot of times this can just be in the objective of the process. It says why it's important, why it's there. So the manager talks about that. So this isn't the HR department doing this. This isn't new employee onboarding per se. It isn't HR training. This is on-the-job, job description training, generally done by the manager. I've got the study time required. So I think the employee should be required to study this for an hour. I've got the teaching of the process. You're going to go over it, give examples of innovative ideas, maybe show in the control panel how to make notes about that. If you'd rather do it in some kind of input form, do that. Demonstrate how you complete it. And then you give a test. Ask the employee to recite the process, to complete the form, to talk to you about what they heard and learned, how they would use it. So here we're using the content of the process to train the employee, and we're going over some key specific, teaching ideas, studying, teaching through role-playing or watching, looking over someone else's shoulder, me standing in front of you, explaining it to you, testing, how do I test your knowledge? So if you think about it, it's the basics of adult education, well, even primary education. You have a textbook of some sort, which is the process documentation. You've got a teacher, which is generally the manager, someone more experienced. Even the best technicians don't make good teachers. This is why the idea of having managers in place, managing processes, is essential to a growing business. this concept of just taking a new employee and throwing them with another person who knows how to do that work is very costly. So spend the time to think about how is it going to be taught to the employee, and then how will you test their knowledge of it. Then, down even to more technical process like referral development or requests for information or contracts and proposals. So think about this outline. What's the background in relevance? What's the total training time? What's the study time? So the total time it'll take from beginning to end, the study time for the employee, the time that I'm going to teach it, the time for the testing. So you see what this is doing? In the end, if you go through every process on the job description and you plan it out like this, and again, you only have to do this once per position on your org chart. You do this once. If I add up all the training time, 2 hours, 5 hours, 20 hours, I have a roundabout estimation on what it's going to take me to fully train someone to fill this position. That's a novel concept. It's huge, though, isn't it? If I know the processes work, and I know I can teach a competent person with the minimum qualifications how to do it, and I plan on investing the time to train them, and we get to 10 hours, we get to 3 processes, and I'm seeing quite clearly that this employee is not going to make it in this position based on tangible information that I have on how they are learning the processes, then I let them go. I don't just keep, banging my head against the wall trying to make it work. Or better yet, somebody's flying through the training, they're learning it all, and I have fully trained a salesperson in 50 hours, which is what my processes told me I could do, and they're up to minimum qualifications in that amount of time. So every time someone leaves, I know I can replace them. I know what's going to cost me because I can take all that time I'm paying them plus the management time plus a little overhead, and then boom, I know it takes $10,000 to replace a new sales employee. That's power over your business. I mean, it's a way to, it's scalable. It's a way for you to plan it out. If some of you were thinking when I was talking in the org strategy webinar about, how you have to grow from within and how you have to be able to juggle sales with operations, and you were all looking at the ground going, that's impossible, I can't do a budget. Well, this is one of the key ways that you learn how to grow your business for real, like grow your own talent from within, be able to juggle sales with operations. You have to have power over your training. You have to have knowledge over it. So this is an effective way to do it. Try it for one simple position. I fully realize that there are managerial positions that are highly complex and difficult. There are technical positions in some of your industries that are very difficult to document and very hard to train for. Try this with something simple and you'll more rudimentary, and you'll see how it works. Even if you could do this for, let's say, 15% of what someone does, I mean, that's pretty good, right? It's better than nothing. If you could do it for half, imagine that. Once you could do it for half, what if you could do it for just one more process after that? So practice something like this. This checklist here can be used in the, obviously, in the control panel as well. So I, as the manager, can have this sales training process here, and I can go here to the checklist, and I can, save this as the employee's name. And then as I train them in each of these processes, or each of these ideas, I can check off this checklist. Then I could go to management review for Jim, and I could mark him as trained once he's finished with the processes. But in addition to having the marked as trained in management review, I also have this more thorough checklist about how the training is going and where he's at in the training. Plus the employee knows as well. You can always export this to Word or just print it for the employee and say this is where you're at with the training. So this is about implementing your processes, using them as management tools, and learning how to effectively keep your processes relevant and up to date. To really make them something that's going to be quantifiable and be able to help you increase the profitability of your business. Someone's asking, What would be the first steps to start with TouchStone? Yeah, so this is kind of back to the beginning, but maybe it's good because we're at the end now. When you first approach TouchStone, the best way, the first thing to really start on is getting it organized well. So it's as simple as creating your 4 functions list. So not documenting everything right away, but making a master list of everything in your 4 functions. Going and pulling things from the library, just getting a basic list together. Then build your organization chart. That's number 2. So build this as a picture of all the positions in the company. And then go and build your job descriptions. So the job descriptions are built by linking the processes from here to the boxes on the chart. So there's this add existing process, which allows you to create all the job descriptions. So when I say organized well, that's what I mean. We're all the processes listed, built the org chart, built all the job descriptions. Generally takes, anywhere from 10 to 20 hours, I would say, depending on the size of your company. But it's an effort worth making just to get it organized well. Once that happens, I mean, even if nothing was ever documented, you've got these great job descriptions that are really specific about processes that each position is accountable for. Even if we never documented, how to do a performance review or how to make decisions, at least there's a pretty practical listing of what employees are supposed to do. But once you're at that point, then it's time to start in on the documentation that you can do. So you've got everything organized by position. You can go in and say, okay, sales department, we want John and Tom and the manager to document all the processes. Or we want every key employee to work on them. Or we want just this one star salesperson to work on this process. So think about your talent. Think about who's doing things well, who's good at writing, who's good at technical writing. You don't have to be a great writer to document processes, but you have to be able to think in a structured way. Who has some computer skills? That's always good. There's nothing worse than trying to stick an employee on documenting processes where they can't really think through a sentence or a structure all that well, and they're bad on the computer. You're going to be wasting time. So think about the best way to get that documentation to happen and who are the people that can help you, and then start delegating. Each manager, obviously, should have some part in the documentation of their subordinate positions processes. If there's no managers in place, if you're a much smaller company, well, then it's you maybe who needs to jump in there and start documenting. But once TouchStone is organized to this point, the documentation becomes, easier. Let's say you have a salesperson that you want to document the sales processes tool. You can organize them in order of priority, just dragging them up and down here. You can even go to the process, and right here in the title, you can put the person's initials and put in a due date for the process, and then save it. Now if I look back at this job description, I'm going to be able to see what I'm supposed to be working on and when it's due. So this is a good technique for when you're delegating of the processes, the documentation of them. So hopefully that answers your question. But in a nutshell, get organized quick or as fast as you can by building 4 functions, org chart, job descriptions, and then start in on the documentation. And then on the heels of what I said today, once the first thing is documented, and the library processes are the easiest to implement because, or document and implement because you get a head start with them and there's some of the more basic things. But once the first thing has been done, then practice implementing. It's kind of fun. Practice having a short meeting, even do it in an email. Say, hey, in TouchStone, we did this time management process. We want everyone to, once a week do X, Y, and Z in it. Even if it's as simple as that. If it's something that's more robust, then sit down in a meeting and discuss it. Show what you've done, show the documentation, implement it, and then go on to the next thing.